Sorry about the speaker this morning.
It's alright.
I didn't realize it wasn't like that.
It's okay. I didn't hear a word you said, but it's okay.
That was a normal volume back there.
I can hear you talking, but I couldn't hear a word.
Grab a red book and turn to page 350 at the bottom. 350 at the bottom. There's a land where springs and rain, and by faith we can see it afar.
texted me. I'll read the text that she sent. So she wanted to let us in the church know, lots of prayer for an answer about her church membership at Glory Land. She's been attending Westside obviously for quite a while now. She said today the day that God told me it was time to join Westside. So I followed my heart and told the church I was led to join the church by letter from Glory Land, as I hadn't got to attend my church because of driving myself that far away. She said she has no ill feelings and she loves us all, but God told her to move membership today as she needed a place to call her home, and that was closer to her. She said she's not sure when she's going to send for the letter or anything like that, but she didn't want to hide anything from us, but she just wanted to let us know that she's praying that Glory Land will flourish, and just she's looking forward to being able to worship with us whenever she's able to. So remember her, and I'm glad she's finding a home that's close to home. So remember her and Lord, we all appreciate all the work that her and Brother James did even years before any of us were ever around in this church. So God used them in a mighty way to keep the church going. So it's good to hear her when she gets back.
Anyone else? Grandma. Oh, she's right now. And then also Dad's boss. Actually, know her decently well. She's considered a mentor of mine at work. I actually talked to her decently now, so it's kind of surprising because the day she found out was the day I had a meeting with her. And she didn't seem like anything was going on different, but she wasn't hiding for a while. Anybody else?
Just remembering Greg too. He talked to me a little bit after church today. There's a lot of spiritual confusion there in that situation. I think church things. And on Sundays he visits us and another Baptist church and a Pentecostal church. He usually goes to 3 services on Sunday, and there's just some things he said that just not settled that well. Nothing against him or anything like that. I'm not concerned about him. I just think there's a lot of confusion about what the truth really is. And glad he's coming. Hope he can continue to get taught and has a desire for it. But won't know the truth. So.
look at some of this. We're going to be reading it a lot of different places. We'll start out Exodus 26. I don't know why it kind of came on me that I feel like I need to go through this, but I feel like studying just in general the color purple. I don't know why. I don't know. That's an interesting thought to have. But it's very interesting when you start studying it out. So when I was looking at this, I'm going to begin to study in a lot of different places. First off, I'll read in Exodus 26. In the first verse, it says, "Moreover, thou shalt make the tabernacle with 10 curtains of fine twined linen in blue and purple and scarlet. The cherubim with cunning work shalt thou make them." And go all the way down to the 31st verse. It says, "And thou shalt make a veil of blue and purple and scarlet and fine twined linen and cunning work. The cherubim shall it be made." Down to the 36th verse. It says, "And thou shalt make it hanging at the door of the tent of blue and purple and scarlet and fine twined linen wrought with needlework." You look at that, and that's just kind of the beginning part of that I was looking at. And when you look at this is obviously describing the tabernacle and some of the construction thereof. And when you look at this, it's kind of interesting because how many times it's decreed, the decorations and how they should basically construct the tabernacle, the specific like colors, the specific adornments, everything that he mentioned that should be covered here. And kind of dawned on me, what is the significance of using the purple? And we're going to keep going to Exodus 28. We're going to read a lot in this one. So basically this was for basically kind of the adornment of the high priest when he did Exodus 28. And we're going to read, I think, all of this in its entirety. Let's start here. It says, "And take thou unto thee Aaron thy brother and his sons with him from among the children of Israel, that he may minister unto me in the priest office, even Aaron, Nadab, and Abihu, Eleazar, and Ithamar, Aaron's sons. Thou shalt make holy garments for Aaron thy brother, for glory and for beauty. Thou shalt speak unto all that are wise-hearted, whom I have filled with the spirit of wisdom, that they may make Aaron's garments to consecrate him, that he may minister unto me in the priest's office. These are the garments which they shall make: a breastplate, and an ephod, and a robe, and a embroidered coat, and a mitre, and a girdle. And they shall make holy garments for Aaron thy brother, his sons, that he may minister unto me in the priest's office. They shall take gold, and blue, and purple, and scarlet, and fine linen, and they shall make the ephod of gold, and blue, and purple, of scarlet, and fine twined linen, with cunning work. It shall have the 2 shoulder pieces thereof joined at the 2 edges thereof, and so it shall be joined together. The curious girdle of the ephod which is upon it shall be made of the same according to the work thereof, even of gold, and blue, and purple, and scarlet, and fine twined linen. Thou shalt take 2 onyx stones, and engrave on them the names of the children of Israel, 6 of their names on one stone, and the other 6 names of the rest of the other stone, according to their birth. With the work of an engraver in stone, like the engravings of a signet, shalt thou engrave the 2 stones with the names of the children of Israel, and thou shalt make them to be set in ouches of gold. And thou shalt put the 2 stones upon the shoulders of the ephod for stones of memorial unto the children of Israel, and Aaron shall bear their names before the Lord upon his 2 shoulders for a memorial. Thou shalt make ouches of gold, and 2 chains of pure gold at the ends of wreathen work shalt thou make them, and fasten the wreathen chains to the ouches. Thou shalt make the breastplate of judgment with cunning work after the work of the ephod. Thou shalt make it of gold, of blue, and of purple, and of scarlet and fine twined linen shalt thou make it. 4 squares shall be doubled, a span shall be the length thereof, and a span shall be the breadth thereof. There shall set in a setting of stones, even 4 rows of stones. The first row shall be a sardius, a topaz, a carbuncle. This shall be the first row, and the second row shall be an emerald, a sapphire, and a diamond. And the third row a ligure, an agate, and an amethyst. 4th row a beryl, an onyx, a jasper, and they shall be set in gold in their enclosings. And the stones shall the names of the children of Israel, 12 according to their names, like the engraving of the signet. Every one with his name shall be according to the 12 tribes. And thou shalt make upon the breastplate chains at the ends of wreathen work of pure gold. And thou shalt make upon the breastplate 2 rings of gold, and shalt put the 2 rings at the 2 ends of the breastplate. And thou shalt put the 2 wreathen chains, the gold, and the 2 rings which are on the ends of the breastplate. And the other 2 ends of the 2 wreathen chains shalt thou fasten in 2 ouches, and put them on the shoulder pieces of the ephod before it. And thou shalt make 2 rings of gold, and thou shalt put them upon the 2 ends of the breastplate, and the border thereof, which is in the side of the ephod inward. 2 other rings of gold thou shalt make, and shalt put them on 2 sides of the ephod underneath, toward the 4th part thereof, over against the other coupling therefore, above the curious girdle of the ephod. They shall bind the breastplate by the rings thereof, and to the rings of the ephod with lace of blue, that may be curious girdle of the ephod, that the breastplate be not loose from the ephod. And Aaron shall bear the names of the children of Israel in the breastplate of judgment upon his heart, where he goeth into the holy place for a memorial before the Lord continually. And thou shalt put upon the breastplate of judgment the Urim and the Thummim, and they shall be upon Aaron's heart, where he goeth in before the Lord. And Aaron shall bear the judgment of the children of Israel upon his heart before the Lord continually. Thou shalt make the robe of the ephod of olive blue. There shall be a hole on the top of it. In the midst thereof it shall be a binding woven work round about the hole of it, and as the hole of the habergeon, that it may not rent. Beneath upon the hem of it shall make a pomegranate of blue and of purple and of scarlet round about the hem thereof, and bells of gold between them round about. A golden bell and pomegranate, and golden bell and a pomegranate upon the hem of the robe round about. This shall be upon Aaron the minister, and his sound shall be heard when he goeth in the holy place before the Lord, when he cometh out, that he die not. Thou shalt make a plate of pure gold, and engrave upon it like the engravings of the signet, holiness to the Lord. Thou shalt put upon blue lace, and be upon the mitre, upon the forefront of the mitre it shall be, and it shall be upon Aaron's forehead. Aaron bear the iniquity of the holy things, and the children of Israel shall hallow in their holy gifts, and it shall be always upon his forehead, that they may accept it before the Lord. Thou shalt embroider the coat of fine linen, thou shalt make the mitre of fine linen, thou shalt make the girdle of needlework. And for Aaron's sons thou shalt make coats, and thou shalt make for them girdles. Bonnets shalt thou make for them for glory and for beauty. And thou shalt put them upon Aaron thy brother, and his sons with him, and shalt anoint them, consecrate them, and sanctify them, they may minister unto me in the priest's office. And thou shalt make them linen breeches to cover their nakedness, from the loins even to the thighs they shall reach. They shall be upon Aaron, upon his sons, and they come into the tabernacle and the congregation, and when they come near the altar of the minister in the holy place, that they bear not iniquity, and die it shall be a statute forever to him and his seed after him. That was a lot of reading. But when you look at that, the instructions, if you just go through and read the instructions, it's confusing. First off, you have to very slow down and understand what they're talking about here. But when you go through, it's amazing every time when they mention blue, scarlet, and purple, when it talks about those, it always says, be made of cunning work. If you think about everything that had to be supplied for the tabernacle, for the temple later on, it had to be the best quality. It was kind of interesting. I was listening to one of my history documentaries, and they asked the friars in the medieval ages, they said they had the best beer of everybody in the whole of all, basically England. They said they had the best beer consistently, and they asked them, well, how do you have the best beer? They said, well, anything we do, we can't do mediocre for God. He deserves the best. And so you look at that, but basically all of it is, he desires to have cunning work done. Right. It has to be the best. It can't be some shoddy, robe of judgment that Aaron puts on here. And the robe of judgment, when you look at it, is basically has to do with communication basically signifies his communication with God. He was the only one allowed to communicate with him. And he had to wear that breastplate in order to do so. And then what that also represented is basically, when you look at here, I was going to read it, says the Urim and the Thummim, basically those has representations to the communication, and basically the judgment, and basically how he carried Israel upon that.
Right.
And so you look at that, but basically when you see this too, you later, and I'll read in a second, but it talks here about how there's other purposes of the purple. Besides here, you look at it says the blue. I looked up kind of biblically, what does these colors represent? And a lot of times you see blue is considered the holiest of holies, kind of what it represents, or heaven. And then you see purple means royalty. It also represents kind of the holy place. Scarlet, which is the outer court, or sin, or flesh. And then it also has a representation when it means scarlet. It's almost as Christ's blood too. It's kind of interesting there how it kind of represents both. And when you look at this, and I was amazing that, I don't know, the preacher came in a while back and talked about how the red was made with the worms. Because back then that was considered to be the most common way of how they made the red dye in order to make the thread. However, when you look at the blue and the purple, it's a much more difficult process. When you look at those, and basically they have these mussels, and the blue ones were used out of these mussels on the Mediterranean Sea, and the purple was by far the most expensive. Because it was called Tyrian purple, or Nika, or when you look at that. And basically when they made this, it took thousands of these little snails that they would basically take the glands out and they would crush them, and it would take thousands of snails to even make 1 ounce of dye. So it's considered the most expensive. They said it took half a Roman soldier's salary in order to buy like 1 pound of that dye. And so it's considered even more precious than gold, and according to the ancient Greeks. And when you look at it, it's amazing how that even comes about, the tranquility, the labor it takes in order to do that. And when you look at, we're going to go into Numbers 4 real quick. And what else it talks about here, we're going to go into 16 verses here, but it has another basically use for the purple here. And it says in the first verse, "And the Lord spake unto Moses and to Aaron, saying, Take the sum of the sons of Kohath from among the sons of Levi, after their families by the house of their fathers, from 30 years old upward even till 50 years old, all in their host, to do work in the tabernacle of the congregation. This shall be the service of the sons of Kohath in the tabernacle of the congregation about the most holy things. When the camp setteth forward, Aaron shall come and his sons, and they shall take down the covering veil and cover the ark of the testimony with it, and shall be put thereon the covering of the badger's skin, and shall spread over a cloth wholly of blue, and shall put in the staves thereof. Upon the tabernacle of showbread they shall spread a cloth of blue, put thereon the dishes and the spoons and the bowls and the covers and cover withal, and the continual bread shall be thereon. They shall spread upon them a cloth of scarlet, and cover the same with covering badger's skin, and shall put in the staves thereof. They shall take a cloth of blue and cover the candlestick of the light, and his lamps, and his tongues, and his snuff dishes, and all the oil vessels thereof, wherewith they minister unto it. They shall put it with all the vessels thereof within the covering of badger skins, and shall put it upon a bar. And upon the golden altar they shall spread a cloth of blue, and cover with covering badger skin, and shall put the staves thereof. They shall take all the instruments of ministry whereof the minister in the sanctuary, and put them in a cloth of blue, and cover them with a covering of badger skin, and shall put them on a bar. They shall take away the ashes from the altar, and spread a purple cloth thereof. And they shall put upon the vessels thereof where they minister about it, even the censers of the flesh books, and the shovels, and the basins, and the vessels of the altar. And they shall spread upon the covering of badger skins, put the staves of it. And when Aaron and his sons had made an end of covering the sanctuary and all the vessels of the sanctuary, as the camp is set forward, after that the sons of Kohath shall come to it, but they shall not touch any holy thing, lest they die. These things are the burden of the sons of Kohath, the tabernacle of the congregation, and the office of Eleazar the son of Aaron, the priest, pertaineth the oil for the light. Sweet incense, the daily meat offering, and the oversight, and anointing oil, and the oversight of the tabernacle, and all that therein is the sanctuary, and in the vessels thereof. And when you look at this, there's another use there. Besides the adornment of the high priest, besides using it in the curtains within the tabernacle, you have, I love that when it basically talks about here, and they shall take away the ashes from the altar and spread a purple cloth thereon. If you see that sacrifice that was just made, that purple cloth was covering it, basically, if you look at it. Basically covering where it was. I mean, there's no evidence of that therein, basically, once the cloth is applied. And when you look at all these reasons, I kind of had I don't know why it came upon me, when you look at some people, I was kind of studying about what were these curtains looking like, and what was the adornment of the high priest's clothing. When you look at this, and actually when they made the curtains, there was many curtains that were thought to be intertwined with purple, with blue, and with scarlet, all within 3 different colors in the threads. And when you look at this, when you have the representations of heaven and the holy place, and you also have basically sin applied, once all those colors are together, you can't tell they're anything but purple. And when you look at it, it's amazing to think all of these things that are represented. If you look individually, you see the individual threads. But as soon as you take a step back, it's all purple. It all looks like royalty. Honestly, it all looks like Christ. Because you look at it, you had the sin and the red clay and the representation of the body. And once you have basically heaven applied into the holies of holies where God dwelled, all you can see is royalty. So therefore, all you can see is Christ. And it's amazing to think about that because they have different adornments. When it talks about the pomegranates, it talks about basically each one is a representation of basically its own color. You have a red pomegranate, you have a blue pomegranate. And basically that was an embroidery on the high priest's clothing. But when you look at the actual, basically the renting itself and the curtain, it's all those threads intertwined and you can't tell they're anything but purple when you look upon it. It's amazing. It represents Christ when you look at it. Because when we were, and I want to keep going, and kind of where I'm getting to this is, I know you know the story, but we're going to Acts 16. This is very familiar, and it's going to be pretty short here, but basically, what you had to look at too is basically when you had these people, when they were required to do purple, And we'll go to another spot in a second. But Acts 16 is very familiar because this talks about Lydia. Lydia was considered a seller of purple. So I just told you about how the intense work it took to make it. In order for Lydia to be a seller of purple, she had to be an extremely wealthy individual.
Right.
So that means, and they're not, and it's believed to be that maybe she was a widow, maybe she was divorced or anything at that point. Because according to that time, if you were considered a woman, a businesswoman, your husband still had the authority over your finances. So in order for her to make this junction on her own, she had to be an extremely wealthy and unmarried woman. But when you look at the amazing, so the status that was associated with her was kind of amazing to see that she was this high appointed individual. And we're going to go start and we're just going to read the 14th verse, and it says, "A certain woman named Lydia, seller of purple of the city of Thyatira, which worshipped God, heard us, whose heart the Lord opened, and she attended the things which were spoken of Paul." Here's this high-end woman who's honestly probably in Thyatira is probably one of the most wealthy individuals around that area. If she was a seller of purple, there wasn't very many people who did this venture. In order for her to do this and open up her house to Jesus is actually, kind of an amazing thing for her to do that. Not only that she was the one who basically distributed the purple, but here she is basically housing Christ in her house for a bit. And it's kind of amazing when you look at this, because we're going to jump back over to Exodus 35. And then I have like 4 more places after this, so we're going to keep going. But Exodus 35. Start at 23rd verse, 20th verse. It said, "And all the congregation of the children of Israel departed from the presence of Moses, and they came, everyone whose heart stirred him up, and everyone whose spirit made willing. They brought the Lord's offering to the work of the tabernacle of the congregation, for all his service, and for the holy garments. They came, both men and women, as many were willing-hearted, and brought bracelets and earrings and rings and tablets, all jewels of gold. Every man that offered an offering of gold unto the Lord, and every man with whom was found blue, purple, scarlet, and fine linen, goat's hair, and red skin of ram's badger skin brought them. Every one that did offer the offering of silver and brass brought the Lord's offering. Every man with whom was found shittim wood for any work of the service brought it. And all the women that were wise-hearted did spin with their hands, and brought the way had spun, both blue and of purple and of scarlet and of fine linen." And here they were, basically almost not quite a decree, but encouraged for these people to partake in order basically to produce the holy garments within their tabernacle and of the high priest's clothing. When you look at it, in order for them to do this, that person had to spend some money to do that. It was a requirement of them. Basically, all 3 of these dyes were actually considered to be expensive. Red or scarlet was supposed to be the least of the colors. But when you look at the blue and the purple being made with the mollusk and the snails, it was an extremely expensive process. So not only are they requiring some work on their part, but also a sacrifice financially in order to produce this for the tabernacle.
Right.
And when you look at that, it's kind of amazing to see how, like with this and with Lydia, how much money and how sacrifice you would have made. Basically, the only individuals who would have bought the purple had been extremely wealthy or had been royalty. And when you look at that, basically you had to be in extreme status to afford that lifestyle. And we're going to go down to, sorry, I lost my place here. Was it Isaiah 61? Just going to read in, I think it's the 1st through the 10th verse. So basically, kind of all this kind of comes to this conclusion here when you read. We're just going to read the 10th verse, and it says, "And I will greatly rejoice in the Lord; my soul shall be joyful in my God, for He hath clothed me with the garments of salvation; He hath covered me with the robe of righteousness, as a bridegroom decketh himself with ornaments, and as a bride adorneth herself with her jewels." And when you read this, it's basically talking about, and why we come to this is basically if you read in Mark 15. And in other places too, it talks about the purple robe that was applied to Jesus before his crucifixion. And when you look at that, and we'll just go ahead and read it real quick. Mark 15, 16 through 20. It says, "And the soldiers led him away in the hall called Praetorium, and they called together the whole band. They clothed him with purple and platted a crown of thorns and put about his head, and began to salute him, "Hail, King of the Jews!" They smote him on the head with a reed and did spit upon him, and bowing their knees worshipped him. When they had mocked him, they took off the purple from him, put his own clothes on him, and led him out to crucify him. So first you hear they're mocking him by saying, "Here he is, the King of the Jews." And little did they know, by them mocking him, they were adorning him with the high priest's robes. Really, I mean, if you kind of look at it, it's amazing. The only ones adorned to do that was either the high priest, royalty, or he had an extremely wealthy status. For them to mock him, and they didn't deem Jesus to be good enough in order to crucify him in those clothes either. They took him out of it. So it's kind of amazing here that when you look at it, he's adorned with the purple robes. When you look at this, and they take it off him because he's not worthy. But here you go, we read in another part in Revelation 18:16. It talks about the purple was one of the cloths deemed to be in heaven. When you look at that, so here you have Jesus with the purple robe, basically representation all within the tabernacle, having the purple, the red, blue, and scarlet. But if you look at it, it's just purple. It covers the sins of man. It's basically anointed by heaven. It's God Himself, and all you see is purple as you see Jesus. The purple was applied to him as the high priest before the crucifixion. And then after that, you see purple was listed to be in heaven. In what we just read in Isaiah 61:10, He will apply the robe of righteousness to us. So if you look at it, we are the inheritors of purple. When you look at the clothing that He presents to us is His own signet of royalty.
Right.
It's amazing that all they want to do was mock Him, but yet, even before the so-called people thought the gospel was going down in the tabernacle, Jesus was there the whole time. He was there in the tabernacle, just as simple as looking at the color of the cloth. If you just look at the color of the cloth and see the purple applied, you see Jesus. It's amazing when you look at it. But yet, what we try to do, we try to see the little things. We try to see all the little things in the tabernacle. What do we see? We see the red. And we see the blue, and we see all this, and all we want to do is point them and separate them all. And you look at it, because basically when it all comes down to it, all it is purple. All you do when God looks on us, He just sees Jesus applied to us.
Amen.
We have the red clay, we have the sin within us, but yet God and Jesus are covering us by His scarlet blood that you have. So not only is the sin no longer sin anymore, it's applied to you by Jesus, and He covers it. But what is it? It's just purple. It's amazing to think about. It's kind of different to go around and see all how this interconnected, but the royalty status of that was actually very significant. In order for them to use that, the color for Lydia to be a seller of purple, for the purple to be applied in the tabernacle. And think how long ago that was when they were doing this. It was an extremely extensive and expensive process. It was no little feat for them to do this. So all of this was a great work on their part and a sacrifice among them. God basically demanded the best that they could possibly do. And what does He do? He rewards us by, here's your purple cloth, here's your purple robe, you're being covered by Jesus, here's the royalty status applied to you. And I think that's amazing. That's all I have.
It's significant, the fact that it takes effort to serve. And we should relish that, because the effort that He gave forth,
Well, I think we call out the cunning work. Anything that we do for God, even the simplicity of things that we take for granted, the upkeep of facilities. We talk about the way that we present. You and I had some conversations about our media and like things that we have on our web page. Like, it might sound like semantics to some, but when we put the gospel out through those means, it's a representation of how we value Christ. And we should want to do it very best. Like, even when we do like song singing and song service, like, yes, I get it. God wants a joyful noise, and we're talking about the intent of the heart. And all of these things are really started by the intent of the heart. And God has to create that desire for that. But if God gives you a talent, you should hone in on that talent to the point where you give the very best that you in every time that you're offering that unto Christ, whatever that is for you. Because if you look at Exodus 35, it talked about how that God had to take these women that were wise-hearted, and they did spin with their hands, and brought that they had spun, and then all of the women whose hearts stirred them up in wisdom spun goat's hair. And you go a little further, and it said the children of Israel brought a willing offering unto the Lord, every man and woman whose heart made them willing to bring for all manner of work, which the Lord had commanded to be made by the hand of Moses. So God had a plan. He had a very specific thing, but he chose to use people to do that. And he had to take, like the two men, I can't remember their names. I think Aholiab was one. I can't remember, maybe Abiathar, I can't remember what the other. But they were given wisdom to be able to set forth the work. And then you have all these people that God stirs their heart to bring the very best that they have. I mean, you're talking about purple. I was just thinking about those snails, like crushing that gland to get, you said 1,000? To get one ounce out of that. That tells me a lot of things. Like, one, how tedious of a process that is. How much patience does that take to really get any product? Right? I mean, you think about that. Is that not really the work of God? When he said, don't be weary in well-doing, but in due season you'll reap if you faint not. We expect instantaneous results. But truthfully, it's the same constant just crushing of the little gland until you finally, through God's grace, get to what God was working towards the whole time, which was enough to make a product. And by the time you keep doing that for however long you're doing that, then you get a tapestry, right? You get a look at that. And then you said it was more precious than gold. I thought about what Peter said, the trial of our faith. That's really a crushing, isn't it? It's more precious than gold that perishes. Really, the trial of our faith is when we start to see the road for what it really is. Fascinating.
To think that they could beat gold into thread and use it to sew into the garment is crazy. It's crazy. It's just absolutely crazy.
Well, even just the building of the temple, right? You know, there wasn't a sound of a hammer lifted. And they cut all these things off site. But for those that have tried to build anything, you're building something completely off site. And they were wise enough and measured well enough for whatever it was that they brought it in and it fit. That just boggles my mind. I mean, how many times have we had to recut stuff over the years? Like, you know, putty and fix it together because it looks a little off, tweak here. But, I mean, it was perfect, and that's amazing.
But think how you know the knowledge to do that when you have it, or you can come to the knowledge of squishing the glands in the snail to get the color. You know, there had been God and all the planning of saying, this is exactly what I want, you're going to do this, you know.
But even in the church, we have elevated certain works in certain offices like there are these extra special things and that's all there is to do. And what I see from this is God used the talents of those individuals to glorify himself. Not everybody was a snail squisher. Not everybody was a goat hair spinner. Not everybody was a carrier of the altar. You know, the Levites had a very different office. All of us have different gifts and talents. But let's get our minds out of this mindset of like, well, I only can be the pastor, the preacher, or the deacon. Like, use what God's given you to work for him. And whatever that means. I don't know what that means. I don't even care what that means. Just be working. Be found doing when he comes, right? Like, and whatever that is, God will prosper that when he puts it on your heart. It has to be God that stirs your heart for that work.